Hi, welcome to the Shepherd's Rest Doc Talk. This is episode 106B.
I'm Cam, this is Julie.
Yes, this is the Haftarah discussion of this week's Torah portion, and it's found in Isaiah 40, verses 1 through 26.
Okay.
All right, so we are now past the 9th of Av. We're past the 3 weeks of the Dyer Straits.
Okay.
Remember, we had 3 different admonitions from the Lord, the Haftarah discussions, and we did 2 in one session, 1 in another, and now we're starting 7 weeks of consolations.
Yes.
And they're all found in Isaiah.
Okay.
So Isaiah is very interesting because there's 2 parts to Isaiah. There's Isaiah 1 through 39, considered Isaiah 1, and Isaiah 40 through 66, which is considered Isaiah 2 by scholars because they're so different. Some think that they're written by different Isaiahs, but they're not. It's the same author, but there's so much to that. You know, there's the judgment and the consolation. Here's what's happening now, here's what's happening in the future. Chapters 40 through 66 deal with the restoration of Israel from exile.
Okay.
All right, so it deals really with both exiles and both restorations. So we've got the southern kingdom who was taken to Babylon in Jeremiah's time. It deals with that restoration, but it also looks forward to the next restoration, which is the Messianic kingdom. Yes.
So, it's funny because the scholars do say, these are 2 different Jeremiahs. These are 2 different Isaiahs because one's so, and one's so,
It's like we say there's 2 different, there's the Old Testament God and the New Testament
That's
God.
That's exactly where I was going. Isn't it funny that they say that? But it's ironic that they look over the part of hope that's in the first, and they look over the part of judgment that's in the second.
Yes.
Because, Isaiah 2 is all about how the King Messiah is going to come and sit on the mountain and call us back. That's all hope and future. So it's funny how they really have both elements within them, but it's what I guess is weightier. Therefore, it's kind of like with the Old Testament,
and
people don't see any type of grace in it whatsoever, and they don't see any judgment in the New Testament.
Yeah.
But they're both there on both sides.
On both sides. That's correct. Okay, so let's jump into this week's Torah portion, and I already warned Cam. Listen, we're probably going to have more questions than answers when we're done here because I've been on so many rabbit trails from this Torah portion that I really didn't even study these verses much. I did. I went through them, but I was here and there. Okay, so a few weeks ago, I heard a teaching about Hezekiah. I don't even remember what it was, but something inside me said, this is important. And for some reason, I thought, wait a minute. We have to pay attention to King Hezekiah. For some reason, I'm thinking we have to pay attention to Hezekiah because there's going to be a pattern here. But I wasn't able to explore it in depth at that time. Yes.
Well, one thing I do remember about that, because we were talking about, and you were saying about how Hezekiah went and showed the enemy all that he had.
Oh, but that's what we're going to talk about in this week.
I was like, I remember you talking about that.
And I remember, but that's like all I knew about what Hezekiah did.
Okay.
That's all I knew. And then I thought, wait a minute, there's something, I don't know if it's the spirit inside me or what, but something is telling me, look, it is vital that we pay attention and learn from Hezekiah and to look at where we're at on the timeline. Okay? So as I did this week's Torah portion, I was like, it's even stronger now.
Gotcha.
Okay? So, but I have more questions and answers so far. But here we go. So if you back up to 39, all right, 39 is the chapter right before the second Isaiah. So it's the very last thing that happens before this big restoration. Okay? So here's what happens in 38 and 39. So 38 and 39 is all about when Isaiah comes to Hezekiah and says, look, you're going to die. The Lord has told me that it's time for you to go. And he's young, he's prosperous, he's the greatest king thus far.
He's at the pinnacle.
He is at the pinnacle of his kingship.
Right.
And he begs him, no, please, I don't want to go. So he says, okay, that's fine. And Isaiah says, and this is going to be the sign. It's in 38:8. It says, see, I am bringing the shadow on the sundial, which has gone down with the sun on the sundial of Ahaz, 10 degrees backward. And the sun returned 10 degrees on the dial by which it had gone down. So basically, the sun went backwards about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
I think is what that equates to, if I remember correctly from Chuck Mesler. It is about 15 minutes. So it goes back 15 minutes. Then in 39, look what you see. You see, at that time, Merodach Baladan, son of Baladan, sovereign of Babylon, so this is the king of Babylon, okay, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he heard that he had been sick and had become strong. So here's my thought. These are the sun-worshiping pagan nation who saw the sign of it going backwards and knew something's happening in Israel. Something big is happening with Hezekiah. Yes. So he sends gifts and he sends spices because they saw the sign in the heavens. Right?
Yeah.
It made me think of, well, what have we been talking about for the past, 5-6 years? All the signs in the heavens that we've been having. We've been having the blood moons. We've been having the eclipses. And the biggest one thus far is going to happen this September with the sign in the heavens of the, that they've been talking about with the woman clothed with the sun. You get the revelation.
And that's the biggest one because it's right now. Because the 4 blood moons were the biggest one. It's whatever's next that's... Wow.
And I guess the reason I say the biggest one is because that one, if that's true, that one actually lines up in Revelation in our time.
Yeah.
You see, that's why I'm like, the biggest one, which the blood moons we've had several blood moons fall on feast days, but we've never had, according to what I've read, we've never had this sign happen. It's been 6,000 years, I guess. Yeah. So I guess that's why I say the biggest, but anyway, I thought to myself, okay, well, what happened to King Hezekiah was he was given 15 more years.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, he begged and begged and begged, and he was given 15 more years. Well, we're about to have a big sign in the heavens. Are we going to be given 15 more years? And then, what does it say in Matthew 24? If the days weren't cut short, no flesh would survive. This is what my brain's been doing all day. And I thought, the reason I connected these two with what's happening now with the sign, because that's the very last thing you read about in Isaiah before you read in 40, which says 40 verse 1 says, "Comfort, comfort my people, says your Elohim." It says it twice because it's talking about 2 different consolations. It's the one happened in Babylon. They were comforted, and now the exile now, and we're going to be comforted. And it goes on and says, "Speak to the heart of Jerusalem and cry out to her." So we know this is spiritual because it's to her, that her hard service is completed, that her crookedness is pardoned, that she has received from the hand of Yahweh double for her sins. There we go again, twice. It's happened twice. They were exiled the first time in Jeremiah's time. They were exiled in 70 AD. Yeah. And now it's the restoration, comfort, comfort. You see what I'm going?
Yes, absolutely.
And this is why it makes me connect with the Hezekiah thing. So I was like, I never made that connection before. That's what happened right before 40 starts.
Comforting,
the comforting starts. All right, let's look at verse 3. I saw something really cool. It's kind of a play on words that just jumped out at me. It says, "The voice of the one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of Yahweh, make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim." Now, we know this was John the Baptist. All 4 Gospels say John the Baptist. But look what did you know, I didn't know this, did you know that this is the verse that the people in the 1st century used, why they named themselves the Way?
Oh, that's the verse? I knew there was a verse, but I couldn't remember what it was.
This is the verse that they used, and it's because it said, because John the Baptist prepared the way.
Right.
And it was his preparation that brought Yeshua, who was the Lord who came. And I thought, oh my gosh, so here we are at the very end on the cusp of the kingdom, and it says, prepare the way of Yahweh. So that means it's us again. It's preparing the way. Yeah. So the people returning to Torah and doing just like what they did in John the Baptist's time, repent and return, is the same thing that's happening now. Yeah. And that is preparing the way. So it's not like preparing an actual path. It's actually prepare the people.
Right.
The way.
They are the way. Yeah. I like that.
So I thought that was really cool.
That's good. on the way issue, I know at Shabbat last week we talked a lot, and Julie had seen in last week's Torah portion how the way kept coming up, and how, while Israel's walking through the desert, the way,
right,
they had to walk in his way, the way, in order to properly arrive.
Right.
So it kind of goes with this in my head, because here's prepare the way. That's exactly what the Lord was doing. Preparing the way so they could go into the land, so the Lord himself could enter in to be in his land.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And I love that because, in 3, it also says at the end, make straight in the desert a highway for our Elohim.
Yeah.
Because they were out in the wilderness, in the desert.
Yes.
And now we are spiritually still in the wilderness waiting to go into the kingdom. Yeah. Right? And I really believe that last generation is finally rising up. The one who are going to take the kingdom.
Yeah,
Not take it, but, go into the kingdom. Preparing the way,
and not just
to
that,
go into the kingdom,
but the ones who will enjoy and appreciate the kingdom.
Right, because the first, right, the ones who aren't afraid of the giants,
yes,
and the ones who are willing to be obedient and do what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Now going on, about 4 through 9, what you really see is Yeshua quoting this all throughout his ministry. I mean, once you start reading this, you're like, well, Yeshua said that. Well, Yeshua said that. Yeshua said that. He's just going back to Isaiah and quoting, giving them a hint of this, guys, this is where we're at on the timeline.
Yeah.
Because they were on the cusp of the kingdom the first round.
Right.
And they, like you said in your Torah portion, missed it. Now here we are. We need to pay attention to this.
Right.
I still think Hezekiah, paying attention to him has a lot to do with it. I'm not sure how that works yet. But we need to be paying attention to this because I feel like we are the voice out in the wilderness crying, repent and return to Torah.
Right.
By us doing it, we are crying out to do it. Yes.
So, you keep going back to Hezekiah's importance. And I don't know, but the thought keeps coming to me, because he showed all his cards. He threw his pearls before the swine.
Mm-hmm. That's his mistake.
Yes. And is that not somewhat of a mistake of, as some come into Torah, they want to go out there and go blah, 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 blah.
Right, and throw it all out there. And then it's used against them by Babylon.
Exactly.
Babylon is the spiritual entity that...
Right, and it's not supposed to be handled by them.
Right.
It's supposed to be only handled by those who do and obey. Those who are faithful to it, to tend it, to take care of it.
Right.
Because you're to guard it.
Right.
But when it's put out there for Babylon to get a hold of it, they're not guarding it. They're just twisting and perverting it.
Yeah.
So I just think, could that be a possible connection with Hezekiah?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because they were at the pinnacle. And then, I don't want to say he got cocky, but he got overly comfortable.
Well, think about what all of these signs have done. Okay. So this sign of the sun going backwards, made Babylon go, oh, something's going on.
Right.
And Israel, ooh, we know that something great is going on, and they send gifts, and then he's like, yes, well, come in and let me show you all of our treasures.
Right.
Right. Well, think about what the blood moons and all of this has done with the church. It's caused the entire church to stand up and go, oh, something's going on, and we're flocking to Israel. Now, a lot of them, I'm sure, are going to take it to heart and guard it and become, but how many are going to misuse it and pervert it and end up just...
Or how many do
trampling on it and not even realizing it?
Well, they get a hold of it, and then the king is coming today, because this said so. That's not what it said. This said, this is a sign.
It's a
Pay
sign.
attention.
Pay attention.
But then they get discouraged. Oh, it didn't happen. Oh, it didn't happen. Later, they're like, that stuff is just crazy.
Right.
James, it's not James, but Peter. Saint Peter, he's like, it just keeps happening. They mocking. Everything's the same. And he still doesn't come.
Right.
I'm completely paraphrasing.
And I want to say that about this sign that's supposed to happen in September. This is not a sign of anything except the woman given the spirit, spiritually, the woman given birth of the man-child, who's caught up to heaven. This isn't a sign of the end. It's not a sign of Armageddon. It's not a sign of anything that. A lot of the things I've heard it made out to be, that's not what it's a sign for. It's just a sign for us to pay attention to know in the spiritual realm something's going on.
Yeah, and he's not forgotten us.
That's right.
I'm still aware and I'm still working.
Oh, you know what's so cool about that is at the end of this Torah portion, 10 through 26, are verses that really testify to what you just said.
Oh.
You know, it's kind of verses that have testified to who is like him.
Oh, yes.
Who is like the Elohim of, you know, our God. Who can be compared to him? He's the one that measures this. He's the one that tends to this. He's the one that holds this in his hand. It's really neat. It's kind of a Job event, you know.
Yeah.
It's kind of, and I love that because what you just said made me think of that, you know, because he's just reminding us of who he is, and he has not forgotten us.
Right, and Moses, you know, in this week's Torah portion, in chapter 3, Moses he makes that comment, like, who is like you? You know?
Oh, wow. That's really cool because according to what I read, none of the Haftarahs line up with the Torah portions anymore. They're just consolations. But yet, they're lining up with the Torah portion. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
All right, I have 2 more things I want to talk about. Okay. One of them is just opening a big can of worms, and I'm not really going to go any further than, you know, just putting it out there.
Gotcha.
Putting it out there. And that's in chapter 9. It says, "You who bring good news to Zion, get up into the high mountain. You who bring good news to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with strength. Lift it up. Be not afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, see your Elohim." I saw 2 groups here. I saw the spiritual and I saw the physical, which made me go on this big word search and hunt on the word Zion. Okay? Because we throw it around like it's a physical place,
right? But
yet, if you go to Israel, you're not even sure it's over here. But was that the original place?
Some
it's the city of David. It's this other mountain. You know. Yeah. Anyway, and there's a lot of talk right now about Zion being the place of the third temple, which I think is very interesting because my thought here was there's 2 groups. Those who bring good news to Zion, so let's say spiritual Israel.
Okay.
Those who bring good news to spiritual Israel, get up into the high mountain. You who bring good news to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with strength, lift it up. Be not afraid. Say to the cities of Judah, see your Elohim. So we've got the spiritual, I don't know, it just goes along with my theory of those in the millennium. There's going to be people in New Jerusalem, Zion, and there's going to be people here in physical Jerusalem for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
You know? And when I read that, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to go look at all these places where Zion is used.
Yeah.
And just see if there's a connection there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was my can of worms. I haven't done that yet. So good luck. All right. And then, like I said, if you go and read 10 through 26, you have the, who is like this Elohim, and just talking about his absolute majesty. Yeah. And I apologize if I'm kind of choppy. I left my notes at home, so I'm trying to do all this by memory. All right. But I do want to talk about something I saw in verse 22. It says, It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. I'm not going to try to use this verse to prove that the earth is round and not flat. I promise. What I saw here was its inhabitants are like grasshoppers.
Yes.
So my thought was, see, the Lord is up here and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. So when the spies said we're like grasshoppers to these giants, they were attributing them like the Lord.
Yeah. Well, to be godly, to be not good godly, but like, dear God, it's so big type.
Well, they were seeing in the physical and not the spiritual, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I would say, but isn't it interesting because if these are a culmination of the earthly and the spiritual, then they would see themselves like as a God sees them.
Yes.
As grasshoppers.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. That's a cool find.
I know. When I saw that, I was like, ooh, that's what the spies got in trouble for attributing them being like it's not the fact that they were like grasshoppers, but it's because of in whose sight they were grasshoppers.
So doesn't that even make more sense why, not only did you refuse to go fight the giants, but you saw them and equated them to me.
That's right. That's what I saw here.
God, that's good.
Yeah.
So if they're attributing the qualities of the Lord to the giants, and they say in 13 that the land was eating up the inhabitants.
So what is their...
The thing they keep saying about the Lord is, you brought us out here to kill us.
Yeah, yeah.
So they really
It just shows their mindset.
Yes, because that is literally what they keep saying. The Lord, you brought us out here to kill us.
You know what they see?
The lamb's going to gobble us up.
They see Torah as death, not life.
Ooh, that's good.
Now,
God's
think about that today.
instructions.
Think about that today.
Yeah.
Do we see Torah as death or life? A curse or a blessing?
Yeah.
We don't want to be like the ones who say it's a curse.
So then, if we see it as a curse, we attribute that to the Lord. Then you go back to Matthew with the servant who says, but I know you're a harsh man.
Yeah.
That's how he saw him. He
Yeah.
still served him, but he said, I know you're a harsh man.
Yeah.
So that's exactly the same attitude that you have of the Israelites who could not go into the land, that the Lord says in this week's Torah portion, or last week's, I will not give them rest.
Right, because you made no investment.
And you can't have rest because you don't see me as one who gives rest. You only see me as one who gives death.
Yeah. Ooh. Yikes. All right, well, we're going to end on that note. I know we're not supposed to end on a bad note. But what side of the coin do you want to be on?
Yeah.
Let's be on the good side of the coin, to where we see it as a blessing and not a curse. Yes, we are grasshoppers in his eyes, not in the giants.
That's right.
Not in all these false doctrines that are around. We're not a slave to that. Stop being a slave and in bondage to Babylon.
Yeah.
You know, I thought about this. There were two groups of people in the time of Jeremiah's exile, in the time of the first exile. There were ones who were taking slavery over to Babylon, and then there are the ones who chose to go back to Egypt.
Oh.
All right? So at Yeshua's death, burial, and resurrection, when we were on the cusp of the kingdom, but it was like, nope, we're going into exile again. There are those who got caught up in the Babylonian teaching and became a slave to Babylon. And then there were those who went back to Egypt. They refused to even acknowledge Yeshua as the Messiah. You see what I'm saying? There were two different groups.
Of the soil, would those be two of the soil groups?
Oh, I don't know. I never thought about that. Can you elaborate?
Well, obviously the ones who grow are the ones, the third group you're not talking about, who stay, plant themselves, and take in the word. So I was just thinking, just would be interesting if the one who withers quickly and the one who is on rocky soil is the translation of those in worldly behavior would be one going back to Egypt and one going as slavery to Babylon. I don't know. Just
I don't know. I was just thinking that, after the Torah in its messianic connection has been lost for so long. Yeah. It's like we've been, slaves in Babylon.
Right, yeah.
And then there's those in Egypt. I'm thinking about the Jews who don't accept Yeshua.
Right.
And the church who doesn't accept the Torah.
Right.
That's the two groups that I saw.
Right.
So then you have those coming back from Babylon.
Right.
But I have to say this about coming back from Babylon. Until Yeshua showed up, they still had a mixture of of the true word and the Babylonian. It never came back pure again.
After they were sent to Babylon and then returned. But you had so many that stayed in Babylon that just perpetuated the mixture.
Yes, and when Yeshua showed up, that's a lot of the reason I feel that they rejected him, because there was still such a mixture that they couldn't see that the true word showed up.
Right.
So think about that today. As we're coming out of Babylon, we have to be careful. We still don't bring so much mixture that we don't see what the Spirit is really doing today.
Right.
And how He's moving today.
Yeah.
Because the biggest problem that they had, the Jews at that time who were accepting Yeshua, is that He kept congregating with those who were not even worthy.
Yeah.
And that brings me back to the first part of this Torah portion where it says the valleys will be brought up and the hills will be made low.
Oh, yeah.
So you've got the people. What I find in the Messianic movement, and maybe it's just me, but I find that I never see status. It just seems to be,
you're all moving as one.
We're all moving as one unit, brothers and sisters equal, moving on this path, and there's not this lording over.
Right.
I don't find that. I mean, I'm sure it's somewhere, but I don't see it. Yes. But anyway, I just saw a lot of those connections here. All right. Well, that is all I have for you today. I hope that was okay without any notes. I hope we did good. I think we did pretty good midrashing, but I can't wait to get into the Word and try to make some more of these connections with the Hezekiah and I don't know, these two different, the Zion. That's really got me. I can't wait to go study it. I may come back next week and be like, you know what, trash all that. I went and looked and it has nothing, it really didn't line up at all. But who knows, that's just where I'm at right now. And maybe you guys can give me some feedback. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because we love feedback and we love to midrash. That's one of our favorite things to do, which is why we do Dog Talk in the first place.
Yes, that's right.
All right, well, that's all we have for you this week. And we will see you next week with episode 107.
Yeah. Take us to heaven in 107. I can't help it.
She's got to rhyme. It has to rhyme.
It does.
Take us to Take us to heaven. 107. Yeah, that'd be great. We'd like to go to heaven next week. All right.
I'm not busy. I can change my calendar.
All right. Well, we hope you have a fantastic week. Shalom.